Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Candidates Forum for Bergen County Clerk. My name is Barbara King, and I'm a Vice President of the League of Women Voters of Bergen County, the host for this forum. I'd like to thank the candidates for participating and the audience for submitting questions to be asked of the candidates. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. We work to increase understanding of public policy and influence public policy through education and advocacy. We welcome women, men, and students as active members. We also do not support any party or candidate. We work on the issues. Tonight's forum will follow league policy of focusing on issues and not personalities. We have with us Helen Arcantu of the YWCA of Northern New Jersey as our timekeeper, and we have Marlene Sincaglia as the league trained moderator. Marlene is not a resident of Bergen County, so she does not have any chance to vote for either of these candidates. And Marlene will now describe the timing for the evening. Marlene, take it over.
Thank you. Okay. We have two candidates running for County Clerk of Bergen County, Mr. John Hogan and Ms. Bridget Kelly. This evening's program is divided into three sections. The first section is opening statements. Each candidate was asked to prepare a 1-minute statement. Now you will see cards, a yellow card being shown that tells the candidate that 30 seconds have expired and they have 30 seconds left. Then at the end of that minute time, you will see a red card being shown. That means time is up. Please finish your thought, and we'll be able to move on either to the next candidate's response or the next question. That's part number one, opening statements and 1 minute. And Mr. Hogan, you get to go first.
Thank you. And thank you to the league for sponsoring this event. You know, as I was preparing today for the event, I recalled that I've been attending, participating in these type of debates since I first ran for council when I was 24 years old in Northville. So it's truly democracy in action. It's been my honor to serve as the Bergen County Clerk. At one time or another, people are going to pass through the office of Bergen County Clerk. Every citizen in Bergen County will. And, you know, I've worked real hard to try to make that interaction as convenient as possible. Many people can pass through the office electronically instead of coming in person as they had to do in the past. We have user-friendly website, extended hours, pop-up satellite offices. We have e-recording, the electronic recording of deeds and mortgages. We have a fraud alert system, initiatives that I introduced. We kept the office running through the pandemic, through Hurricane Sandy. Last year, I can tell you the revenue that we brought in that office, while it kept functioning, was over $100 million last year. We processed over 100,000 land transactions, and it's all by cross-training employees. And most important, that pertains to what we're doing now, is that we had a record-breaking voter turnout last year with the all vote by mail election. 75.1% of the voters turned out in Bergen County, an election that was, excuse me?
Thank you. Your time, the minute is up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Kelly.
Thank you, and thank you all for watching tonight, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for having me. John, it's good to see you again. I want to talk about my experience and my vision for the Bergen County Clerk's office, but I also want to tell you that I've had 20 years experience under my belt working for the taxpayers of this county and for the state. I worked in the state legislature for 16 years, and I worked in the executive branch of New Jersey government for 4. my greatest joy is to help people. And as Mr. Hogan said, the office of the county clerk is a place where most residents pass through. So for me to know that I could be a part of getting things done for them, that truly would be an honor. And I look to fairly execute the responsibilities of the office.
Thank you. We will now move to the second portion of the forum. These are questions that were submitted by the public. These questions were screened by league members to avoid redundancy, personal attacks, and to make sure that the questions were relevant to the office sought, that of county clerk. Okay. Question number one, Ms. Kelly, you're going to answer that first. The question asks, in your view, what are the biggest issues facing the clerk's office at this time?
Thank you for that question. Right now, the biggest issue I see is that we had 2 years of incorrect ballots being sent to residents of Bergen County. And at a time where residents and voters are so skeptical of elections, I really think that the mistakes, albeit whether it was at the printer or elsewhere, they were avoidable. And I think we need to do a better job. We can't have our residents fearful of elections. And I think that when mistakes like that happen, they need to be addressed, taken, somebody has to take accountability for it, and they need to be fixed. And they shouldn't have happened in the first place.
Thank you. Mr. Hogan, same question.
Yes, Ms. Kelly has a one issue campaign going on. I hear this every place I go whenever she speaks. There's a lot of other issues that pertain to the clerk's office, but I'll hone in on a response to this because of limited time. Mistakes, in my view, are totally unacceptable. What happened last year in Teaneck is there's an election district which separates right in the middle of the town, both congressional districts. Unfortunately, the mail house sent the same ballots to both congressional districts. So one of the congressional districts did not get the right congressman. We immediately responded. We sent out the corrected ballots. No one was disenfranchised. We took action. We publicized it. We went to the press about it. Nothing was done in secret. It was 6 weeks before the election. We delivered a successful election. As I told you before, 75.1% of the voters turned out. The integrity office is very, very important to me. To earn the trust to the residents of Bergen County is very, very important to me. I've removed barriers so that people can participate through the office easier than possible. We've initiated all the new voting requirements that have come down through the state, 3 different ways to vote this year. I've earned the trust of the people that I represent.
Thank you. Thank you. Next question, Mr. Hogan, you get to answer this one first. Many in the public only think of the county clerk's office as the entity involved in voting and elections. However, the office handles a number of other services associated with businesses, passports, land records, etc. Mr. Hogan, could you indicate what proportion of staff time is devoted to each division of services?
That's really hard to answer because since I've been to this office, since I've assumed office 10 years ago, I've cross-trained our employees. So we move employees around throughout the office. So when it's a time of the year when land record transactions increase, we move some people from our passport area to process those. That didn't occur before I got there. By cross-training the employees, that's how we kept the office open during Hurricane Sandy and during the pandemic. I can tell you there's a lot of activities that go on, you know, just for those who are viewing. The county clerk's office has existed for a long time before George Washington because someone had to keep track of all the land records for the King of England. So it began with land records. It morphed out to include passports. We do a big portion of the election process and a lot of other functions that the card went up and I don't have time to speak about.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly.
Well, I can't really speak to the time that's spent on staffing in the county clerk's office because I'm not there.
Well, what would you propose altering? Would you propose altering the division of labor?
Oh, the division of labor of employees. I think it would have to be something when I got there, I'd have to look at it. I mean, I think everybody does something different. I think that for me, as somebody who would be new to the office, I think it would be important, as Mr. Hogan has done with his staff, to cross-train. I don't think that because that's how you learn everything. However, and as the new county clerk, I would need to do the same. So again, I think that the question's a little difficult to answer because I haven't been in the clerk's office to decide how the office would be run.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly, you get to answer this next question first. 4 states use universal vote by mail, as New Jersey did in last year's presidential fall election in response to COVID-19. What is your opinion of making greater use of this method of voting that is convenient for voters and may be less costly to taxpayers?
So the office of the county clerk is one of 3 constitutional offices in the county. My job as county clerk is to enact the law. If it is done fairly, if it was done thoroughly and it is done correctly, I think vote by mail can work. But I do think that there are segments of the population whereby going out to vote on election day to them is not only an outing, but it's a right and it's a process and it's something that they feel so taken by, and that they're able to go do that in person. So I think that the convenience of it is good, but I also think that there needs to be greater recognition of the right we are given, and that is to vote in person.
Thank you. Mr. Hogan.
So last year was a real eye opener for me because I said, how the hell am I going to deliver an all vote by mail election? Like over 600,000 ballots we would have to get out. I said, that's going to be an impossible feat. We were given limited time to do it because it came from Trenton, the order, and we did it and we succeeded. However, there were complaints about people who wanted to go and vote in the voting machines. I still think the governor made the right choice for last year, but I like the different options that the voters of Bergen County have that Governor Murphy's proposed and had us carry out, you know, voting by mail, voting early 2 weeks before the election, or voting in the voting machines. I think the more options people have, the more likely that they will participate in the process.
Thank you. Mr. Hogan, you get to answer the next question first. The question asks, members of the community have mentioned that the design and instructions for use in this mail-in ballots and sample ballots are confusing or difficult to read. Do you think improvements in the layout, wording, change in font size would make it easier to read, understand, and use?
So I design and lay out the ballots. However, there's 2 other election agencies that are responsible for the election process. That's the Board of Elections, and that's the Superintendent of Elections. The Superintendent of Elections oversees and purchases the voting machines. The Board of Elections counts all paper ballots, the vote by mail ballots, the provisional ballots. I'm kind of at their mercy as to the type of design and layout that I'm offered. The voting machine only has so much area that you can put stuff in, and the state has requirements for instructions, et cetera. The new voting machines coming down the road, I think, are going to give us more opportunity. We've been talking to the Board of Elections about purchasing some new different machines so that we can lay out our vote by mail ballot better. But this is the best we can do with what we have right now.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly.
Listen, I think that there's a whole lot of information contained on your sample ballot, and it's a lot of words, but I'll agree again with the current clerk. I think that it's what we have to do. I think that you have to spell it out for voters, but it is difficult to read. I mean, it's the size of, and that's no one's fault. It's the size of a kitchen table when you unfold it and whatnot. But I don't know how best you could do that. And I think in trying to keep elections for everybody, you really do have to spell everything out. And so I agree that the amount of words and the size of the words, I don't know what you can do to make that better, but I do think right now what we have is what we have to deal with, because it's the only way to get the messages and the instructions out to people.
Thank you. Next question, Mr. Hogan, you'll be answering this one first
Okay.
again. And it talks about, as you know, New Jersey is the only state in the country whose primary election ballots have one column, usually column A or B, listing candidates who are selected by the local county party heads. Sometimes this design also occurs in general election ballots. This party line or county line ballot is confusing for voters to see and find candidates not on this easily visible column, and disadvantages candidates not in the party line column. What is your view about redesigning New Jersey's primary ballots so they are less confusing to voters and fairer to all candidates?
Okay, so I design, lay out, and have the ballots printed in accordance with the directives from the state of New Jersey. Everything that's on that ballot, the state tells us what to do. The actual layout is how I have to do it according to the machines that we have. There's not just one line. We have drawings. If you have at least one countywide candidate running for commissioner, we would have a drawing if you were running third party, whatever. 15 years ago, Senator Weinberg, Assembly members Johnson and Huddle, they created their own line separate from what this person's referring to as a party line, because the party line doesn't exist. They created their own line with a full slate. And guess what? They won. So it can be done under the current system. It takes a little work to put a full slate together, but that's how elections occur. And that's my information on it.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly.
Yeah, I think our democracy was a two-party system, right? And so there are third parties and additionally other parties, and it takes a lot of work to get a line together so that you can participate in a primary. But it's nothing that the clerk's office can really do other than set it up accordingly so that the ballot is user-friendly. And again, so much of it, I think it's hard to understand that the design of it depends on, and John can tell me that we're correct or not, depends on the type of the machine you have. It has to mimic the machine. So you're kind of at the mercy of the machine you're using and also the process of the democracy.
Thank you. Well, this brings us to a question about machines. So for this November's election, an early voting period of 9 days was instituted utilizing 9 early polling locations in Bergen County and employing electronic poll books and new voting machines that produce a paper trail. What, if any, role can the clerk's office play in choosing new machines to replace the 25-year-old machines currently used on election day in all municipalities? Is there funding to acquire these new machines? Ms. Kelly.
That question is a little too insider baseball for me. I do know that there's been complaints of the machines in Bergen, and that's at the hands of, I believe, the superintendent of elections or the board of elections. John, is it who does the machines? Superintendent?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. But is there funding for it? I think that we're in a situation right now that early voting starts Saturday, 9 days prior to election day. What we're dealing with is the law that's in place right now, and we have to deal with the situation we have, which is the current machines and early voting, and hope that that is done too efficiently and safely.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Hogan.
Yeah, so the superintendent of elections purchases the machines, but she also looks for funding. So she goes through the commissioners and also the county executive. We've been invited into these meetings and these demonstrations over the past 3 or 4 years under the prior superintendent of elections. And I liked a lot of the stuff that I saw. The instructions, because of the touch screen that we saw, the instructions could be, instead of 3 different languages, you could hit the button for what language you'd like to use. And it made the whole ballot open up wider. There's a lot of different options that are coming down the pike. But I just want to say this. We all know why elections occur on the first Tuesday. It's, after the first Wednesday or whatever. It's Monday or whatever. I can't even follow it anymore.
It's Tuesday after
So it's when the farmers were coming in from harvest. And New Jersey's elections have been run like that until modern times. Thank God Governor Murphy's given us 3 options this year to deliver an election. We went backwards a little bit last year, but we still delivered an election. Thank God we have 3 options.
Thank you. Okay, next question. Ms. Kelly, you get to answer this one first. Bergen County, consistent with New Jersey, has a highly diverse population. Can you identify what policies and practices are in place that you may want to develop to ensure that diverse values and cultures, women, people of color, etc., are represented on your staff?
Oh, absolutely. I think that while ability matters, I think that you have to look at the whole person and the whole applicant. I'm not sure of the breakdown in Mr. Hogan's staff. I do know that we went over this a little bit last week. But in my mind, I think that, any job in the clerk's office needs to be open to anybody. And if you're qualified, your background, your color, your religion, none of that matters as long as you can do the job. So I would make sure that we had access to the communities all over Bergen County so that they knew there were openings, job openings and whatnot, and applicants would be reviewed just like any other job.
Thank you. Mr. Hogan.
First thing I did 10 years ago when I assumed office was to make sure that our office would look like the people we represent. For my deputy, I chose Lauren Zyrick, who after 6 years went on to become a deputy to the Secretary of State in our state government. She's the first Latina deputy clerk. After that, about 4 years ago, I chose Steve Chung, who's the first and only Korean American deputy county clerk in the state of New Jersey. We've hired based on ability and also based on background. We want to be reflective of the people whom we serve. That's what we've always tried to do in the office. Now, we speak 12 different languages too, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Okay. Next question, Mr. Hogan, you'll answer this one first. The question asks, are there changes you're working on or would like to see to make your office more responsive and more efficient?
Well, that's an ongoing process. As technology improves, when I first came into the office, it was stuck in the last century. And at that point, we were 11 years into the new century. We introduced technology right away. I told you some of the things that we began with: e-recording of deeds and mortgages, electronic recording. I told you about a user-friendly website. What I didn't tell you about is election results took forever to get out because there were only 3 cartridge readers. When those things come out from the machines, there were only 3 cartridge readers. We tripled the amount of cartridge readers, put it on our website. The press doesn't even come to our office anymore. When I see the results, they see the results. You can watch the results populate from the confines of your home. So it's an ongoing process. As technology comes about, we're constantly improving the office.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly, if elected, are there changes you might like to see or might propose to make the clerk's office more responsive and more efficient?
The way I would do things and the way I did things when I worked in Trenton, both in the legislature and the executive branch, was to just make sure, and this is how I would run it, not critiquing Mr. Hogan, but it's how I'm saying that this is how I see things. I think people come to the clerk's office to get an answer. And so I would just want to make sure that my staff was getting those answers, yes or no, and getting them the information, getting residents of Bergen County the answers they need in a timely fashion. I think my biggest thing is for seniors, technology is great, but a lot of seniors are afraid of technology. And I think we have to be cognizant of that at all times as well.
Thank you. And the last question for this evening, Mr. Hogan, you get to answer this one first. Mentions that last night, the LWV Bergen County Candidates Forum, both candidates for surrogate identify the strong working relationship between the clerk's office and the surrogate. Can you explain how and what tasks the clerk and the surrogate share and the need to work together for the benefit of the public?
All right, just bouncing back to the last question. People come to the clerk for everything. We get surrogate questions all the time. We get questions for Veterans Affairs. Our office, especially my administrative assistant and her assistant, they know right away where to direct people. We get a lot of surrogate questions. We go back and forth. The surrogate, he's looked at the technology we've used, and he's mimicked our technology for some of his functions, which he probably spoke about last night. And then, you know, some of the leadership that he's provided, I've known him since we were about in our early 20s. He was Mayor Cresskill, I was mayor of Northvale, and we have a lasting friendship. I idolize the man, and those of you who know him will know why. So we've done a lot. He helped me to develop my office. As I come up with new things, I share those with him.
Thank you. And Ms. Kelly?
I think the biggest, with regard to the surrogate's office, and it's something we've spoken about many times as we've gotten around Bergen County, is the importance of the surrogate and the clerk's office being in contact about the voter rolls. I think that there needs to be, you know, I have family and friends that have received ballots for loved ones that they've lost. So I would just make sure that that was a priority once I got in, to ensure that the surrogate's office and the clerk's office were working together to ensure that the information the surrogate's office has on deaths are then removed from the voter rolls.
Can I just respond to that, because that's incorrect?
30 seconds.
Okay, that's incorrect. The superintendent of elections handles the voting rolls of registered voters, and that relationship already exists between the surrogate's office and superintendent of elections. When I send out a sample ballot, if it comes back not undeliverable, that sample ballot is returned to the superintendent of elections, who takes the appropriate action.
Thank you. Okay, this brings us to the last part of the forum, which is the closing statements. Again, the candidates prepared 2-minute closing remarks, and Ms. Kelly, you will get to go first.
Thank you, and thank you for this opportunity. At the end of the day, the county clerk and all elected officials should work for you. It is public service. Right now, the clerk's office seems to be a place for John Hogan to tout his achievements, but at the same time, perhaps look for higher office. We don't know how money is being spent, what the hiring practices are, or if the ballots you receive are actually correct. Just this past election, or this upcoming election, 2 towns received the incorrect ballots. If I am elected, that will change. I will audit the office. I will seek out expert opinions on running it better, and it will be continually modernized. The current clerk's website has a lot of words, but not a ton of information. And you can be certain that the elections would be administered in a fair and appropriate way with correct ballots. It is impossible to ask anyone to have faith in a system where the system is not being run fairly. We have current 0 checks and balances in Bergen County, 0. I appreciate Mr. Hogan's friendship with Mr. Dressler, but it sounds like a boys' club to me. That needs to change. Thank you for your time, and thank you for hearing us both out. And I humbly ask for your support on November 2nd.
Thank you. Mr. Hogan.
Okay, there's some things, if you're running for an office, you have to know the office. And obviously, my opponent tonight knows very little about the current county clerk's office. The law, the state of New Jersey says the office has to be audited. It's audited every year. A complete financial audit is done. This is not about gender. This is not about boys' club. This is about knowing the office and about doing the job. What website she's looking at, I invite anyone who's on tonight to look at our website and see all the valuable information that's offered from the Office of the Bergen County Clerk. I've worked real hard to protect the integrity of the Office of Bergen County Clerk and to earn the public's trust and keep that trust. I've made my services more available to the people I served. I've built bridges between people to help them, not to hinder them in any way. I've saved taxpayers $200,000 a year in election printing costs, which has now been realized to a cumulative total of $2 million that we've saved since I've been in office. My opponent never held elected office, but she always held an appointed office, appointed political office, that is. She's looking for a job. I have the job. I earn the public's trust. I continue to earn the public's trust. She's a one-issue candidate that can't get off of a couple of ballots that were incorrect and that were corrected within 24 hours. She can't get off of that one-issue campaign based upon my record and my vision compared to what my opponent did. And that day in September of 2013, when people were harmed in Bergen County, I think I have a good, strong, solid vision, and I think I deserve re-election. Thank you.
May I just say that I think we were going to stay away from personal attacks. Thank you, John.
You did the same, Bridget. You do it every time. And then and I didn't say Bridget
Barbara.
once.
I want to thank the candidates for participating in our candidate forum. Thank you, Marlene Sincaglia, for moderating the program this evening. I do want to remind everyone, as has been mentioned by the candidates, that there are 3 options in the way you can vote this year. You can use the mail-in ballot by mailing it back and or dropping it in one of the drop boxes that are still available throughout Bergen County. You can vote early starting this Saturday on the 23rd at 9 different polling places, or you can go to your regular polling place that is listed on your sample ballot and vote on November 2nd between the hours of 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. If you're interested in getting more information about the candidates who are running, the League has an online voter's guide at vote411.org. If you put in your address, your ballot will be populated, and some, if not all, of the candidates have had invitations to answer questions and provide some biographical background. You can find that there. You can also visit the League of Women Voters of Bergen County website, where we have some other candidate forums coming up. Specifically, this Thursday evening, we have the 4 candidates running for 2 seats on the Board of Commissioners at 7:30. Don't forget on your ballot, besides most of you having Board of Education races lower on the ballot for you, there are 2 statewide public questions. If you're interested in an analysis, the League of Women Voters of New Jersey at lwvnj.org. If you go there, you can find an analysis of pros and cons of each of the public questions. Once again, I want to thank everyone for participating and viewing us this evening. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
again.
for having us.